Hello, this is Leanne from Birds Canada here in Saskatoon, and today I'm going to demonstrate for you how to enter in nocturnal owl survey data into the NatureCounts app. The NatureCounts app is available from the Apple App Store as well as from the Google Play Store. So once you have that downloaded onto your phone, go ahead and open her up. The icon is a cute little Canada J. So the first thing that it's going to do is going to ask you for your login name. So you can go ahead and enter in that information. And I'm going to also enter in my password, but don't worry, I've tested this out and it won't actually show you guys my password, which is a great feature. Okay, I'm just going to check for updates, and this is always a good reminder to open this app up before you head out into the field so that in case it needs to do an update, you're at home on your own Wi-Fi. The first thing I want you to do is make sure that this is actually for the Saskatchewan Nocturnal Owl Survey, because if you're registered for multiple Birds Canada programs, this is one app for many surveys, so you might find yourself opening up into a different project. So check it out right at the top. I've got I'll annotate it on. Here we go. So right here at the top, the Saskatchewan Nocturnal Owl Survey shows up, which is great. In case you see something else like the Saskatchewan Breeding Bird Atlas or some other survey that you don't recognize, go ahead and hit that profile button in the bottom right-hand corner. That will bring up your personal NatureCounts profile, and it'll show you My Project, which is the one you're currently logged into. If you want to change that project, say you're not in the Saskatchewan Nocturnal Owl Survey, you can hit the Switch My Project button over here, and that will give you options to select different provinces. Go ahead and click on Saskatchewan, select Next, and make sure you've got the Saskatchewan Nocturnal Owl Survey toggled. I should remember it afterwards. So we'll save those changes and we're back to our profile. So go ahead and head back over to Create at the bottom left here, and that will allow us to create our checklist for our Nocturnal Owl Survey. So I'm going to be doing this from my home, obviously, because I'm doing this on my computer. But for you, you should be out there sometime after 8:30 p.m., which is a half hour after local sunset time these days here in Saskatchewan. So the first thing you'll want to do is make sure the date and time are correct, and then select your location. So it's going to bring up a handy little map, and you can see where you are based on this blue little dot. Now, preferably, you're not going to be in the middle of the city while you're doing this. You're going to be out on your survey route. So get out to your survey route, and we'll imagine I'm doing the Vanscoy route here. So zoom in on your first station, and you can toggle it by selecting on it. So if I hit it there, you can see that the little icon changes, and the name of the survey route and the stop pops up. So this is the Vanscoy Road route, and this is stop 1. So we're going to go ahead and select that station and get started on our survey. Now it's going to ask us a bunch of questions for the start of our survey. So it's going to ask us about precipitation. We have a bunch of different options. We've got none, rain and snow, hail, trace thunderstorms, or fog. Now remember, we're not actually supposed to be doing these surveys in any kind of precipitation. A little bit of fog might be okay, but otherwise we mostly want none. So I'm going to select none for this. Next, we've got our cloud cover. So take a look at the stars and see if you can see any. This is going to be from 0 to 11. 0 to 10 is clear to overcast, so imagine it being percentages of the sky. And it is possible to get fog, so there is an 11 code there. Let's imagine that we're seeing about half of the sky covered with clouds, so we'll select number 5 right there. And go ahead and estimate or measure the snow depth in centimeters. So we'll imagine that I'm seeing about 5 centimeters as our minimum, and whew, there's some drifty parts there. Let's say there's some 20 centimeters of snow. Next, you'll want to measure the temperature, and for this, there's a handy little toggle for positive and negative temperatures, so you can go ahead and select negative because it'll likely be negative here in Saskatchewan. So let's say it was reading -8 when we got out of the vehicle, and your vehicle temperature sensor is fine for this if you don't have a thermometer. Go ahead and click Done. And last but not least, we've got wind speed at the start of your survey. Remember, we want to be doing this in kind of calm to light breeze. The calmer, the better, really. So I'm going to say, oh, there's a little bit of air moving, but it's not very much. We'll call that light air. Now that we've got those pre-survey questions out of the way, we can go ahead and start our checklist. So this is going to bring up the species list, and at the top here, you'll notice that there is a little timer. So let's go ahead and imagine we're starting our survey right now, and that little timer is going to keep going while we talk for now. So you'll notice that it brings up a limited suite of species, and these are going to be the ones that you are potentially going to encounter on a nocturnal owl survey. There are a few extra species, such as ruffed grouse, American woodcock, and Wilson snipe, that we're also keeping track of during the nocturnal owl survey, because these species also display early in the season and are known to do so at night, so it's always worth keeping track of those as well. You can see most of the species are going to be listed as rare for this area at this time of year, with the exception of a few. Most commonly, you're going to get great horned owls, long-eared owls, and northern saw-whet owls, but short-eared owls are also possible. Snowy owls are a little bit tougher because they don't really make much in the way of noise, and they're going to be a species that you're more likely to see than hear. It is possible still to get them on a survey. Say, the road that you're on has some street lamps and you see one perched on a street lamp by chance, so you might get a snowy owl. But let's imagine that we're already a minute into our survey and we've got a great horned owl that just started calling. So let's go ahead and hit great horned owl there. And you can see it'll pop up a nice little box for our first great horned owl. So we noticed it calling just now. If we take a look up here at the top, we'll see that we are already in our second minute. So we can go ahead and click second minute. We're going to estimate distance and direction for the species. It doesn't need to be exact, just kind of a rough idea. So let's say it was about half a kilometer, so 500 meters away from us, and we're going to say it was to the north. There is also an option for repeat owl. So imagine we're on survey number 5, and on survey 4, we heard an owl, ahead of us towards our next survey station, and then by the time we got to survey number 5, we were hearing that owl from our previous survey, so we could go ahead and hit repeat owl. Ooh, and my phone just buzzed, letting me know that we've reached the 2 minutes, and now you can see that this is going to keep going, so you just have an idea for how long you've been standing around there, but your phone will buzz, so that is a helpful little clue. We'll just ignore the timer going for now as we continue to discuss, but so if we do have a repeat owl, we can toggle that switch. If you want to add breeding evidence, you can. So for those of you familiar with the breeding evidence code that we have in the instructions or in the Breeding Bird Atlas, if you hear an owl calling in the dark, you can use the code S for singing behavior in the breeding season. Now, the details tab over here is optional, but it's really very useful for rare sightings. So if you did see that snowy owl, or you heard a barred owl, which is pretty out of range, you would hit that details tab and write in whatever description that you have to kind of explain your sighting. So you say, oh, I heard the classic "Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all?" I was really surprised to hear it in this location, but I'm very familiar with the species and looked like there was a lot of habitat for it. You might want to write something like that so that when we go through and clean the data, we don't think that, oh, perhaps this is a typo. You've actually put in the information that lets us know that that is likely the species that you saw. I'm going to hit done there and hit cancel. If you heard another great horned owl going as well, you can click add individual row. So that'll add another individual great horned owl. So you can see we've got another one, and it's number 2. It's giving us a little warning here. It says, please enter data, because we have a great horned owl for which we have no information for. Imagine that it also started calling in the second minute, and it was in a similar location, 500 meters away, but kind of more north by northeast. Wasn't quite in the same spot as our other owl, but same general direction. And this breeding evidence is going to be for the whole species. So if you heard 2, that's fine. You can still use S. If you hear 2 of them, actively calling back and forth and duetting, you can go ahead and bump that up to a code D. And you might want to write in the details that those 2 species, or that those 2 individuals were duetting. Let's say you accidentally hit that add individual row, because if you're like me, you're going to misclick a whole bunch. You go, whoops, I didn't actually mean to add a third great horned owl. Not to worry. The thing to do is to hold your finger down and press on that great horned owl up here. I'm going to hold it press, and it's going to ask you to clear the individual. Go, phew, yes, I can clear this individual. I did not want to report a third great horned owl. Okay, so now that we've got our 2 great horned owls noted, one other thing I wanted to bring up is that you might sometimes hear a different species that's not on the list. I remember one nocturnal owl survey I did, I heard a crow caw in the night. It was a strange thing, but I just remember standing there and it's like, yep, there's an American crow going at night as well. That is strange, but I will note it. So if you want to add a different species, you can. You can go up here to search species, and I'm going to type in crow. And you can see it's going to bring up a whole bunch of species that all have crow in the name. So we can add American crow and say it called in the first minute, and we'll add distance. It was pretty close. It was, say, like 100 meters away, and it was to the south of us. You'll see here, because you have crow still in the search bar, that suddenly your list is very, very long. So you're going to have a whole bunch of species. One thing you can do is you can look here at the bottom where there's either that little bird icon, there's the checklist icon, or the map icon. The bird icon, that's just going to show you all of the possibilities you have. Usually that's just going to be those preloaded species, but right now, because we have crow still there, we still have all those other species. If we go back and hit search species, you see that crow disappears, and we are left with our regular shorter list. But if you just want to see the species that you've already detected on that checklist, you can go ahead and click that check button. You can see it's got the number 2 because we have 2 individuals on it, or 2 species on it, and it will bring them up a much shorter list with just the species that we've observed. If you ever want to check out the map, you can always bring up the map as well. Just take a look at the habitat around you. That might give you an idea for where an owl is calling from and how far in which direction. I find it helpful. Okay, so now that we are done with our count, we can hit review. So we review that survey. It's going to remind us of the start time, and that's going to be the start time when you hit that start button. The duration is going to be fixed. It's a 2-minute survey, and if you have any comments, you can add them in there. It's a good idea to keep track of vehicles that pass, so you can write it down in the comments, but you will be asked at the end of the survey as well how many vehicles interrupted your lovely survey, because in some locations this is going to be a problem. So if you don't have anything to write in the comments, don't worry about it, but you can write things like loud barking, angry landowner came out at me. Hopefully that doesn't happen. So go ahead and hit save for that survey, and it will bring up the survey route. We go, okay, well, we've got survey 1 done. And if you want to edit those pre-survey questions, you can do that from here. You can also add a new station as well. So adding a new station brings up the map again. See, those things are loaded, and we can see that number 1 now has a green checklist next to it, and we are driving along, and we've located ourselves at station number 2, and so we can hit that. So we can see that it's already loaded with the present time. I guess it just changed to 4:53. We're going to hit start and do the same thing all over again. I'm just going to go ahead and move on to the review for now, just for illustration purposes, but you go through again and enter in all of the species that you hear in your 2-minute survey. Okie doke. Let's imagine that we've got 10 out of 10 of our survey stations complete. That is pretty fantastic. You can hit complete survey once you're done. Right here, it's going to remind me that you've only completed 2 out of 10, which is always a helpful reminder, but we're going to go ahead and submit anyway, imagining that we have done the 10. It's going to ask us what our end temperature was, and we go, oh, goodness, it's already decreased. It's -10. Why is the minus not coming up? Okay, I will have to send a note to folks because that minus is not coming up at the end. Okay. Wind speed at the end didn't change, still light air. Noise level for the overall survey, so we're going to either go with none or slight, go relatively quiet, little interference, so maybe a dog barked in the distance, but it really didn't interfere with your ability to do the survey. Moderate, maybe you were close to a busy road for some of it. Moderate, so some interference with broadcast and or listening. We don't broadcast here, but some jurisdictions do broadcast. High, substantial interference, so your survey was along a busy route and you had just lots of cars going, or excessive noise, extreme interference. So we're going to imagine that we had a very pleasant survey with none or slight, and we only had, the negative sign is working for our traffic count. Okay, that's one thing that we'll need to fix. So we'll make sure that is plus, and we can add 1, 2. So we can imagine we had 3 vehicles along the way. The temperature thing still bothers me. It's strange that it's not doing it. Okay. Hit next. And overall comments for the survey, if you have any, and the total number of observers. I'm going to imagine I had a buddy with me because it's always more fun to do this survey with friends. And is this a complete survey? Say, yep, I am identifying all the birds that I heard. I've even added that weird crow that was going. So you're going to select yes. And then it'll ask you to submit your survey. If you don't have data or an internet connection, it will likely tell you that it cannot submit it, but it will save it to your drafts. I'm going to go ahead and submit the survey now. And it's going to say, thank you for your checklist submission. You can go back and view any unsubmitted checklists on this checklist tab right here. You can see that I've got a draft saved of one checklist. So if you wanted to select that and review it and submit it once you're back where you have service to do so, you can do that as well. And I think that's about it. There are tabs in the upper right-hand corner if you want to save this checklist as a draft, or if you want to discard it, you can do that. And you always can hit the back button to review other checklist information. So that's all I have for you, and hopefully you can play around with this. If you do play around with it, just remember to add into the comments at the end. So if you hit complete survey, just add in that this was a test checklist. Ideally do this at a time when you wouldn't be surveying for owls, and don't make it a complete one. That way I'll know that these are just, test checklists that you were messing around with. Or the other option is to just not submit the checklist. You can do that as well. Okay, thanks for tuning in, and I hope that was helpful. Bye-bye.